Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Doreen Ritchie. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. Thank you very much for having me.
Listen, thank you for coming on the show. So would you be kind enough to tell us who are you, what do you do, and where do you come from?
Well, my name is Doreen Ritchie, and I'm from Belfast, born and bred. And I'm a life and executive coach at the moment. So that's what I'm doing right now and have done for the last 2.5 years. Before that, I was in business my whole life, finance and management. So totally business background.
Well, okay. Life and executive coach. Break that down for us. What are we getting?
What do you get? Well, basically, I coach people who maybe are at a crossroads in their lives, or who are maybe at a certain point in their lives where they really are suffering from things like terrible stress, or they're maybe just through a divorce, or they want to change their career, or they maybe just want to change job and they're not very confident about applying, or something awful has happened in their life and they haven't worked through it. So basically anybody with some kind of nexus, some kind of crossroads or problem in their life. And they come from all walks of life. But mostly I see professional people because they want to maybe make their business a wee bit better, they want to succeed. And basically because that category of people seems to have a lot of pressure and a lot of tension and stress, especially in the present moment of time where people are getting let off and your business has totally changed. They've maybe had to, point the business in a different direction or whatever, or try to think of a new business or something like that. So basically, anybody like that at all who wants to come and just talk through their options or maybe why they're in that situation in the first place, that's what I do. I also do workshops for businesses who want to maybe help their staff with stress and so on. I've done talks in places like, the Lisburn Enterprise Zone or Craigavon Armagh Borough Council and places like that, where they're maybe gathering a group of, usually women actually, a group of people together to talk about wellness and things like that. Then maybe have a few speakers and I'll be one of them because I talk about how to think in a different way, which reduces your stress. So basically that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years. As I say, before that I was in business and then I left my job and then I didn't have anywhere else to go because I just left. And that's another story. And then I decided, well, what can I do? I was good with people. I was good with groups because I was ahead of lots of teams and everything when I was working in business. And I was good at bringing people on and seeing solutions to problems. As a coach, you don't actually tell people the solution to their problem, even though you probably can see it a lot of the time. The beauty about being a coach is that you're actually guiding people to what their solution of the problem is. And then whenever they realize, that's their truth and that's what they know, then it becomes a learning point for them. It becomes an area of growth for them. So I'm not doing the thing for them. I'm just guiding them to be at where they need to be in order to solve this problem and go forward. And then, of course, yes, together we set goals and stages along the way and so on. But basically, it's to do with the person. So that's where I am at the moment. I operate out of East Belfast. Actually, I operate on Zoom constantly now and have done since lockdown. So it works out very well. So,
Well, a number of things there. I mean, can you, I suppose, give us an overview then, sort of how counseling, coaching, mentoring, executive coaching, how that all, what all the different sectors that you see there?
Well, it's not counseling per se, because I don't have a counseling qualification, but I do have a qualification in coaching and life coaching. And then I went on to do different courses myself and actually learned a lot of stuff under different coaches who are sort of obviously a lot better than me and more famous. And that taught me a different way of thinking, which changed my life. So I wanted to then help other people use this way of thinking to change their lives. And mentoring is not the same either. Mentoring is you've really, if you're talking about mentoring in a business sense, you've really got to be somebody who's gone through the type of problem that the person has, and they know what to do, and there's various steps, apply for this grant, or what about your profit and loss, and so on. And I did a little bit of business consulting actually while I was still at work, so that's fine. What was the other one you mentioned? It was counseling, coaching, mentoring.
Was mentoring, and then even sort of executive coaching.
Yeah, well, what I mean by executive coaching is that I understand where these people are coming from, because I've been there and done that, if you know what I mean. So they have various pressures that maybe ordinary people wouldn't have. Maybe somebody who owns a business, they don't even just have the pressure on themselves about how they perform. It's how they perform for their staff. And, it's not just their job that's on the line, it's the staff jobs that are on the line. So basically they have that extra added pressure. So I don't tell them what to do with their business. I tell them, or show them, or help them see how they can think about those things in a different way, which reduces their stress. So when people are calm and they've got great clarity of thought and so on, it's easier for them to make a good decision, right? I'm sure you'll agree, if you're under stress or, under pressure, you don't really want to be making decisions. So if you're constantly under pressure and you're constantly running along to try and keep up, where are you going to actually take a step back and be able to see the bigger picture, and this happens to a lot of executives and a lot of people who own their own businesses, and they really can't see the way through the problem, because, as I think it was Einstein or somebody said, you're the same brain that creates the problem can't really see the solution. So what I do is really just tilt the way they see things in a slightly different direction. So then a solution will come to them, a creative solution will come to them. But it also helps, especially for men, especially for males, it also helps to actually talk through the whole thing, so they may well not be instinctively, they don't instinctively know what's wrong or anything like that. It's easier for them to actually talk through the problem in a logical sequence. And then they get insights as well. So there's two, women come along with different things, and I would approach that in a different way than I would if it was a man, because people approach their difficulties in a different way. So when I say executive coaching, it's basically professional people, and as I say, it's not that I'm coaching about the business, I'm coaching them, but then when they go into the business, they're making better decisions, taking better actions, and so on. And that's how that works.
Well, thank you for explaining that. That makes sense. And a word that's reoccurring there a lot for you is the word change.
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, when I was employed, in work, for example, so I'm an accountant. Then I went into the private sector, then I went into the education sector, the voluntary sector, and finally the public sector, specifically museums. And I wasn't employed as an accountant by then, I was a manager. So absolutely, there's different problems in each area, but always, the answer is change, and it may well not be the change that you're thinking of. It may well be reducing numbers of people. It might be bringing in numbers of people, might be just cutting down the numbers of procedures, might be whatever. So for example, in the museums, I was I wrote the financial procedures, for the museums. So therefore, things that people took for granted that you had to do because we were constrained by the department and so on as to how we had to approach things, because obviously we're dealing with public money and everything has to be terribly accountable. Well, when you got down onto the ground, you got down into the shops and the museums themselves and the cafes and things like that, those constraints, those big structural things, those didn't really work. So you had to find a solution whereby those things were met, but actually it worked for normal people doing a normal job every day. So that's basically where I came in, I wrote the financial procedures that everybody could follow, we worked together and so on. So it was always about change. And if somebody found a different way, I would always say to my teams, if you can think of a different way of doing this, because, I don't know if you're ever had experience of public sector and bureaucracy, but basically the bureaucracy would drown you. Like literally, you could just drown in the paper of the paperless office, we're all supposed to have paperless offices, no way. Anyway, basically, if you didn't try all the time to cut down on that, it wasn't workable. So I would say to people, look, if you can think of a different way of doing this, which is better, then please let me know. And that's how we worked. You know, we were always trying to refine something or change it or cut that part out, or, you know, how can technology take over from this bit, or, you know, so it was constantly change. And that's what I'm pretty good at. I'm pretty good at change management. And so whenever I decided to do coaching, basically I realized that this is me helping other people change their lives. So that's one of my strap lines, you know, I help you change your life, basically. And it's not just about refining things or cutting things down, but it actually has the same end result, that people do change. And when they come to coaching, they think they're coming with maybe one or two problems. And they think, oh, I'll change that bit and I'll be fine. But whenever you go through the process, obviously, you become aware that that's only a very small part of the agenda. That's just a symptom of what the problem is. And then whenever they try it, whenever they change that problem, or whenever they overcome that problem, or they look at it in a different way or whatever, it actually changes their whole lives. And they may not, some people may not have actually wanted their whole lives changed. So, you know, it may well be quite clear from early on that this woman shouldn't stay with her husband, right? But she didn't really want to come for that. You know, she wanted to come because she was a wee bit annoyed about something, or she was not self-confident about looking for another job. So you have to sort of say to people, like, this will actually change you. It changes how you think about things. And you may well find that other areas of your life then will be impacted, and there'll be huge changes and transformations, and, you know, people leaving the country and living somewhere else and getting divorced and all that. So it's very powerful, you know, and when you want to change, you need to, you know, I would just say to people, just be aware that everything changes to a certain or to a greater or lesser extent. But that's a brilliant thing, because, of course, change is great. Change is where you're growing, and you don't actually become any different or learn anything or realize anything good unless you're actually in a zone of being, you know, uncomfortable. You're outside your comfort zone. That's the only time you really, really learn, when you're challenging yourself. So basically, if you want to grow as a human being, you know, not just because of A, B, C, D, or E, then I would say coaching is absolutely fantastic for you.
That's interesting, you know, even with change, that it's, you know, whether you consciously want to change, as you say, it might just be one part, but they're all integral in each other, right? So one affects the other. But is it conditional change? I want to change the bit that I know, or the bit that I'm prepared to change.
Well, you know, a woman came to me once who was spending too much. So she came to me for money coaching, because I do money coaching. And she came to me because she was spending too much money. And then what she was doing was she was going every lunch hour and buying lots of clothes or toiletries or whatever. And she felt great about that, except at the end of the month, of course, when half of them were still in the cupboard, half of them weren't unwrapped, you know, and she had a big hole in her bank balance. So you would think then I would be sitting down with her and going through this whole money thing and budgeting and all that. And yes, that was some part of it. But actually, we really wanted to look at why she was doing that. Right. So this woman was living with her husband, sorry, her partner, but like a husband for years and years and years. One daughter who had gone to college by this stage. And she was a very senior civil servant, but she didn't speak up in meetings. She didn't put forward her expertise in the meeting. She was sort of looked over, if you know what I mean. At home, her husband didn't work, her partner didn't work, so she paid all the bills, the mortgage was in her name, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she went out and she spent all this money on clothes, and that's all she wanted fixed. But at the end of the day, of course, that isn't the problem. You know, she was buying things to help fill this void that was actually in her. And this void was a lack of love and care and so on. Now, ostensibly from her husband or partner, but also from herself. She didn't value herself. She didn't rate herself as being good at anything, even though she had the job and all to show she was good, technically on paper, but she couldn't even bring that out. Now, at the end of the day, this woman separated from her partner very amicably, sold her house, bought a beautiful apartment somewhere, and went off to China for a month's holiday at the end of it, you know. got a really good result in her work, was able to speak up, got different projects to do. People started respecting her, all because, you know, she started to realize the value of herself and who she was and everything and what she brought to the table. And she started to have self-confidence in herself. Oh, and by the way, she stopped buying things at lunchtime, just as a by the way, you know. So what I mean is that, you know, you can think that you have this problem and people think this is what is wrong. But actually what I teach is that whenever you start to think about, okay, so what is that showing you and everything else, obviously, and counselors do this too, of course, that's actually just a symptom of what the real problem is. So we need to get to the bottom of that problem. We need to see, well, why are you telling yourself this story that you're no good at things? You know, why are you telling yourself the story that you're not worthy of love, or that, you know, what's that about? You know, so basically, you know, that's what I'm saying. People come with one thing and then suddenly they transform their lives completely without really knowing it, without intending it, you know.
How often do you find that, I mean, you know, causes are dressed up as symptoms?
Most of the time, that's what it is. You know, somebody came to me about money again another time, and that she didn't even know how many credit cards they had, apparently. And at the end of the day, it was because she was running away from responsibilities in her home because she wasn't getting support and she was afraid to ask for it. And it turned out, you know, that her parents had behaved exactly the same way. And, you know, it all, you know, most of it goes back to your childhood because that's where we're programmed. And most of it goes back to your parents, but it could be siblings, or it could be close relatives, or it could be some traumatic events that happened to you, or it could be teachers, you know, anything. But most of it comes from a story you tell yourself about your life, or about who you are, or what you're worth. So that's what you keep telling yourself. You don't know that you're telling yourself that, it's subconscious. But it sort of colors everything that you do and everything that you look at. And they're called limiting beliefs. So that's basically, we all walk about with all these limiting beliefs and try to make the best of things. But we're 90% habitual people, and our thoughts are 90% habitual, and our actions are. So basically, unless you're aware that that's the case, you're not going to change it because it's a habit. And you react exactly the same way to the same things every time, and you go the same route to work. And, you know, you could be halfway down the road on autopilot and you suddenly waking up and think, oh, how did I do that for 5 miles there? I wasn't even thinking. And that's why, because you're basically on autopilot, but you're on autopilot a lot of your life, you know, during the day and with people and same types of people. You react the same way to the same types of people and so on. We're creatures of habit, really.
Do we, I mean, and because I'm interested in, because you bring in the change aspect, I mean, are we seeking familiarity, or are we seeking, you know, that sort of pre-gone conclusions? Are we seeking confirmation?
Well, a lot of that is subconscious, of course, but what you are doing is you're seeking to stay in your comfort zone, and you feel safe when you know what the outcome is, and whether that outcome is good or bad. By the way, you know, like if people are, you might say, well, you know, domestic abuse, why do women stay in that situation? You know, they know it's wrong, and they're being abused and so on. But it's very clear that actually people do that because it's not just because they don't have anywhere to go. It's because it's still safe, because they know what the outcomes are going to be.
So what does fire in the belly mean to you, Doreen?
Fire in the belly, wow. So what I say is what makes your heart sing. So what makes my heart sing is, you know, I got out of a lot of stuff. I got myself right. I changed my life. And if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it with help, right? I didn't have any help. It took me a few years. So my fire in the belly is saying to people, you don't have to go through all that on your own and for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. I can help you see how to do it now. And in my fire in the belly is seeing these people. You can actually see them during a session. They come in like this, and then during the session something happens and they're like this, and they walk out the door and they're walking 5 feet basically, you know. And that's my fire in the belly. I go, yes, these people now, this woman or man or whatever, they now think about something differently. They are stronger, they feel more self-confident, they know how to reduce their stress levels, etc., etc., etc. And they're now going to start creating a better life for themselves. And because, my sort of mantra is live your life, live your life. And I don't mean exist from 9 to 5 and maybe have a few days off during the summer or a nice weekend away sometime. I mean, like, live your life every moment, because that's all we have. We only have the moment. There isn't any future. The past is gone. We only have this moment in time. That's where we experience life, because everything else is just thought. If you think about it, everything's in the present. So, you really need to make sure that your present is what you want, because it's all we have. So, yeah, that's what I would say to people. Live your life. It's not a dress rehearsal. I'm always saying this. It's not a dress rehearsal. You don't get to go over it again. Now, you can change it in such a way that you have another life, which is different from the one you were living, which is what I did. But it's not the same life. I'm still getting older every day. I don't have the same opportunities I had when I was young, but I maybe have different opportunities that I can pick up on, which is what's happened. But you really need to be able to see these opportunities. You need to be in the right mindset so that the opportunities, which are always there, you can see them and take, advantage of them. So that's why I would say, don't settle. That's my fire in the belly. Don't settle. Don't settle for second best. Don't settle for, no, this isn't very good, but sure, there's nothing else, because there is, and you can find it, So that's my fire in the belly, to say to people who have maybe been, they don't know who they are. And lots of people come to me and they're like lost. They don't really know who they are. And you just think, well, you're not living your life, are you? And like, as I say, we only get it once. So you're not making the most of it. So yeah, live your life. That's my fire in the belly. That's my, I'm helping them to see that they can do that if they want to.
How big do you think that pandemic is in terms of people who are lost?
Oh, you don't mean the COVID pandemic? You mean absolutely. People who are lost, I would say probably 90% of people. Because how can you not be? I would say, I haven't met very many people I've met some people who were driven, but they were still lost, because they're driven for different reasons. They're driven because it's daddy's company, or it's, they have to do this and have to do that for the family, or to keep up a certain level of living, or, whatever. People who are lost, yes, who are you? Especially, and I'm not being sexist at all, but it comes out more with women. People like, who are maybe in their late 40s or something, and the children have left home, or they're just about to leave home. And these women, suddenly nobody needs them anymore. They're not needed as a mummy. They're looking at the husband they've lived with for 30 years and they go, like, who's he? And he's probably thinking the same thing, because for the last 25 years, all they've talked about is children, about what other things do they have in common anymore? And maybe because of her age, or because of the level that she's at in her business or whatever, she's maybe being passed over for promotion, maybe younger people coming in. So maybe she's stuck in her job as well. And she doesn't really know, like, do I want to do this for another 15 years until I retire? So basically they don't know who they are. Like, I didn't know who I was. So you don't really know who you are, because all your life you've looked after everybody else. You've done what everybody else wanted, or things that you had to do. You have to be able to pick the children up if anything's wrong. So therefore you have to have a job which, that doesn't start meetings at like 6 o'clock at night, because you have to be home to pick the kids up and make the dinner. And, although, yes, of course, there's loads and loads and loads of business women out there who don't do that and who've got good childcare, the vast majority of women are in part-time jobs because of that, because it suits them to stay there, be there for the children and so on. But then when the children are gone, where are you? Some women absolutely embrace it and go crazy and start a new career and have fun and have, great things happen. But a lot of people don't. So, and with men as well, men maybe get to a certain level in their organization and they're very senior and they can't go any further, but, it's harder and harder to keep up with the Joneses. It's harder and harder to make, you know, money go where it's meant to go. You've got 3 kids at university, they need all this money, you know, and that's what the man, he's sitting going, well, you know, all I am is a money making machine, or all I do is work and bring stuff home, and where's my work-life balance, you know? So yeah, although they're quite, you know, they're slightly different sort of takes, but it's the same problem, you know. When do you have time for yourself? You know, when do you actually feel who you are? Do you know what you want anymore even? You know, because people don't.
Is there a time, or do you see a common thread in terms of when people start asking that question? You know, when and it goes past the sort of.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who come. So I would say my age groups were like, you know, from early 30s, maybe to late 30s, and then later on, so maybe 40. So there's 2 sort of groups. There's the younger people and the middle-aged people, kind of. I'll say middle-aged, but they're not middle-aged. They're from 45 up. You know what I mean? And basically, the younger people are trying to juggle every ball they have in the air at the same time, and it's not working, and the wheels are coming off. And then the other, and they're taking it out on each other, so the marriages are falling apart or whatever, you know, and they never see their kids. And then there's the other side where, yes, they've had this stable marriage, they've had a normal, ordinary job, or maybe even progressed in a job, but the children are now gone, and they want something more, because like whenever you're 60 now or 55 or whatever, you've still got like 30 years of life to do things with. You know, if you think that's nearly your whole adult life again. So nobody wants to just fade away into nothing. But like, what are you going to do if you really don't have any kind of idea who you are, except that you're just not happy? I mean, people come to me and just say, look, I don't even know what's wrong, but I'm just not happy. I'm just stuck or lost, or those are the words they would use. And they don't even know why. They don't know. They could just say it's everything, you know, and so therefore, how can they fix that themselves? Because they don't know what they're looking at or why it's like that.
How does that make you feel?
At the beginning, you feel, well, that's good. How am I supposed to fix this? But the thing is, I don't fix it. It's not that I fix it. It's that I allow them to feel that they can fix it, that actually the answers are within themselves. Because everybody, I believe, inside themselves, you know, they have innate wisdom and resilience and courage and strength. And everybody has this. Now, we don't. A lot of people don't recognize that they have it until maybe they're in dire straits, you know, and then they realize they do have resilience because something terrible happens to them. Or they do have strength because something awful happens. But you don't normally think to yourself on a daily basis, you know, should I really listen to my innate wisdom here? You know, and a lot of people say, well, you know, my gut feeling was I should do this, but sure, you can't be going with your gut feeling. And I'm going, no, actually, that's what's telling you this is wrong for you, or, you know, don't go there, or, you know, that person shouldn't be in your life, or whatever. That's your inner wisdom saying to you, could you just calm down a bit? Can you just get in touch a wee minute and just see what you really want? Can you think it through? And I think that's what, because we're all so busy living in the past or the future, we don't take time to live in the present. And of course, that's where your life experience is, in the present. And that's where you would have, you know, you would be able to calm down. That's where creativity would come to you in the present. So, of course, you can't be creative about things if you're never there. You know, if you're always up in your mind, you know, thinking about things that happened in the past and what's going to happen tomorrow, and worry. So when you don't calm down and you don't sit still, you won't find that out. But if people did that more often, they would be able to maybe think more about what would be good for them in their lives, and maybe think more about their own attributes and their own capacities for, you know, love and compassion and strength and creativity and everything else. And that would make them feel better about themselves and give them more self-confidence and so on. So all I'm trying to do, I don't need to fix their problems. What I show them is a different way of looking at that, so that they are able to see the way through it. That's all.
No, a lot of sense there, and thank you for sharing that. Talk to us then about your journey.
My journey? Well, I was married had 3 sons, went to university, had 3 sons, got a job as an accountant, then went into management, went through all the different sectors and so on and so forth, learned a lot of stuff, ended up in the public sector in the museums for 11 years. Separated from my husband. But before that, I had an accident. And this is what really set me off on this journey. So if I can tell you about the accident, I had a really bad car accident on the M3 just before Christmas. I think it was 2010. And I didn't get hurt. All that was wrong with me was very bad whiplash. So I was off work for weeks because it was really, really bad. But actually I should have been dead because this huge lorry hit me and, you know, spun me around in front of it, bounced off the front of it again, bounced off the barrier. And as I was going to the barrier, I actually remember thinking, you know, I'm going to go through the barrier and then it's right down. You know, we're up the M3 and all crossover. And I thought, this is me down into the water and I'm going to die. Shoot, am I going to die with the, and this is within the space of like 2 seconds, you know? So I bounced off because I didn't realize you bounce off barriers, if you know what I mean. So bounced off the barrier, back into the lorry, and then off the barrier again. And then I was left facing the oncoming traffic in the fast lane with the traffic coming at me, you know. And this guy actually was able to stop with about, I don't know, 6 inches to spare. So all this time I'm thinking, I'm going to die now. No, I'm going to die now. No, I'm going to die now, you know. And then I didn't die. And then I was sort of sitting in the car, which was a wreck. And all this traffic. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, there must be, because it was rush hour, I thought there must be, you know, huge ride back to Lisburn. This is awful. Everybody's going to be cursing me. Anyway, I was in tears because the car was wrecked. But this policeman came along anyway. He was quite quickly there. And then they had the ambulance and then I was boarded off, you know, the ambulance and so on. But the policeman said to me, my God, he said, somebody must have been looking out for you this morning because you should be dead. Because this was this huge lorry that did recovered metal and everything going down to Queen's Island, you know, it's a massive thing. And I said, look, I don't believe in anything like that. So, you know, nobody was sitting up there at all. There's no reason why I was spared, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, look, love, he says, maybe you were just spared to live your life. And here's me, yeah, maybe I was, right, fine, you know, get me out of here. So really, all I was thinking of was my car. Anyway, the upshot of it was, I was lying in hospital about to go for x-rays and things like that. And it just came back to me, maybe the purpose was for you to live your life. And it just hit me like this, like, it wasn't even a light, it was just like this realization of a complete truth. That I hadn't been living my life for the last 10 years. I had been existing. I had been going to work every day because I worked full time through all my pregnancies and everything else. Coming back as women do the dinner, do the groceries on the way back, do the homeworks, you know, all the housework, everything, whatever. And then the next day, get up and do exactly the same thing. And then the weekend was for catching up with all the stuff you didn't get done during the week and so on. And then you went back to work again. And my work was quite high pressured because, you know, I was at the top of the department and all the problems came through me and so on. So anyway, it just actually hit me in the hospital. I thought, my God, that's all I've been doing for years, like years. Where do I come in? You know, who on earth am I? I mean, I could have been dead. My sons would have been burying me on Christmas Eve, that Christmas. And I thought, like, have I lived? Have I done anything? Have I, you know, haven't done anything? I've had 3 children. Okay, I've brought 3 children up, you know, and they're not into drugs and they're fantastic, lovely boys. So that's an achievement, but that's basically it, you know. And so over the next few months, that actually just fermented in my mind, and I kept, now because I didn't have a happy marriage, so I literally I got to May, so that was at Christmas, and I got to May and I decided I was going to go to Dingle on my own to get away from everything, because the youngest I think was 14 or something. And so I literally took 4 days, and I went 5 days actually. I went down to Dingle, which is as far away as I could think of that I could drive, that nobody would come after me. So I basically chose the furthest point in Ireland that I thought I'd be able to drive to by myself, because I'd never driven that far before. It was 6 hours drive. And I went to Dingle, and I had an absolutely fabulous 4 days in Dingle, just walking the beaches, walking hills, going out to the wee pubs at night and talking to people, and which I didn't think I could do. All of it I didn't think I could do. And there I was doing it, you know. And then I drove back, and I knew then, you know, that I wanted a divorce. So that started that off. So that started me off on the road to who was I, you know. And then whenever I realized, well, who I wasn't just this person that got up every morning and did all these things and then went to bed and did the same thing, and that I deserved some happiness, and that I deserved to actually go whatever way I wanted to go without always having to be something for somebody else. Not that I had resented my children at all, and I loved them to bits, but you just get subsumed by all of this stuff that you have to do. So whenever that came out, whenever I realized that, and as I say, I went for divorce, and that was horrendous. And if anybody had told me at the beginning it's going to be like this, I maybe wouldn't have had the courage to do it. But I didn't know how bad it would be until I started. And I'm a Taurian. I don't know if it's something to do with that. I'm Taurus. But once I decide on doing something, I don't go back on it. I never go back. So I wasn't persuadable, if you know what I mean. There was nothing that could have persuaded me to do differently or to go, and there was no regret whatsoever, because it was such a long time coming, Pete, that it was just, that was it, you know. So you know, we separated, and then there was 2 years of arguing about financial settlement and so on. And that 2 years was probably the worst 2 years of my life. It was just awful, apart from the fact that I was on my own, which was great. That part of it was great, you know, with my youngest son, because he was still living with. But anyway, after that 2 years, I decided then I made the decision that now I was going to get out of this, and I was going to live. So that had taken like 2.5 years to get to the point from when I thought this is what I need to do to where I was able to start doing it. And that's whenever I, you know, started going onto the internet and looking. I had friends in Dublin, and I would go down to Dublin. I had friends on the internet who were from Dublin, but I'd never met. And so then I decided I'd meet up with them, because I'm going to be able to go away for the weekend, and I'm going to be able to do this and do this. And that opened up this whole new thing of I could just pop over to London and see a play if I want, you know, because these friends that I had in Dublin were in the theatre and so on. So I met a lot of actors, Irish actors and things like that, you know, and then I would follow them if they went to a play and to do a play in London or whatever. And I sort of got into that scene kind of thing, and that was fantastic, just meeting people. And I remember somebody said to me once, but yes, but why do you up and down to Dublin all the time? And I said, it's a connection. I just want to connect with people, because all my life, well, all my adult life from I was married, it was like the only people you connected with were your family and your in-laws, and that's it. You know, you maybe had a couple of friends which sort of fell by the wayside because they weren't encouraged, shall we say. So that was it. You maybe had colleagues at work. So I wanted to connect with all sorts of people from all sorts of different lives and so on. And one person that I did connect with, and he was a great friend of mine, he came from Limerick, but he was living in Rome. So he did coding. And so he was able to work anywhere in the world as long as he had the internet and so on. And so what he did was he went around Europe to all the capital cities, and he stayed a couple of months in each capital city in a beautiful apartment because he had lots of money. And he would code away, and he was still working for this Dublin firm. But this, in fact, I think he's still doing it. But I think he has stayed in Rome for the last number of years. But anyway, so he started saying to me, you know, what about your, you know, do you meditate and all? He was really into personal development. I couldn't believe this. You know, I didn't realize that people meditated every day, and, you know, there were all these things you could do to try and help yourself and so on. So he put me down that road. He put me on that road to meet other people, to go to different classes and things that there were in Belfast at the time. He knew more about it than I did. you know, that you could go to lectures and they would tell you this and they would have the different people talking and so on. And he got me on to, you know, Eckhart Tolle and people like that. So, and he invited me to Rome. I went to Rome and totally fell in love with Italy. Absolutely fell in love with Rome anyway. And so then the next year I took my son, who was 15 at the time, and he said he would come with me to Italy. And we went to Tuscany, and we went to Florence and so on, and all around Tuscany. And I then totally fell in love with Florence. So then I've been going to Florence every year since, for a month, every year. And except this year I had to cancel. But I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the language. I went back the next year on my own for a month, and I didn't know anybody there. And I went and learned, or started to learn Italian at a school, you know, a college in Florence. And I made loads and loads of friends there from all around the world, because people were coming to Florence to learn Italian for whatever reason. And I had a whale of a time for that month. It was fantastic. And so I came back from that really quite a different person, but on the road to personal development and finding out who I was and what I wanted to do with my life and so on. And that was sort of another start, if you know what I mean. That was like, you know, that was the next stage. So sort of from way down here, then there was this bit, and then there was this bit, and then there was this bit, if you know what I mean. So I kept up the Italian, and I took a degree when I came back to teach English as a foreign language. So I had also just finished a master's. Once I finished the master's, I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because all this time you suddenly have left whenever you're not actually studying for a master's. So then I went to Italy. Then I came back and said, well, I'm going to keep up the Italian. So I went to night classes in Queen's, and I'm also going to teach English to Italian people who live here. So I did the TEFL course, did that, did my 120 hours and so on, and started teaching people. So that was like a side thing, that I would tutor Italian business people who were living here. And then a year or so later, I was tutoring somebody, and he said, well, his cousin was just coming over from Naples, and would I maybe help him as well? And I said, yes, that would be great. And he said, come and meet him. And then that turned out to be my partner. So I met him 4 years ago, and when we started going out, and that was that sort of for the last 4 years anyway. But still this Italian theme throughout. And as I say, of course, the Italians live differently from us. They're different types of people, although they do like us. They come over in their droves, actually. But basically, they're such charming people, and they're very in touch with their feelings, and they're very in touch with life and everything, that whenever you're with them, it's a real uplifting experience, you know, because they are so full of life and everything. So that was another brilliant thing that happened, you know, that was another brilliant thing. And then I decided to leave work and do something that I really wanted to do. And that was sort of not, at the end of the day, it wasn't a big decision. At the end of the day, it was just, okay, they want rid of people in the civil service, right? Okay, I'm going to ask, can I go? I didn't have a job to go to, and I put my house up for rent and moved out of the family home down to a 2-bedroom apartment in Belfast, and got rid of everything in the house, gave it all away. And basically that's when the second life started, if you know what I mean. So I've been living the second life now for 4 years. So then I decided, well, what am I good at? Well, I'm good with people, and I'm good at teams, and I'm good at, you know, helping people and so on. So I know, what about life coaching? So then that's when I started on that journey.
I mean, that's a huge, like, I could come back to change, you know. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to move out and rent the home and get rid of everything. And yeah.
It was all in a month as well. It was from the 31st of December, and I moved in here on the 2nd of February. So in that month, I'd given up work, given up my home, got it ready for renting, and found an apartment and moved in with this new partner. And I didn't know if anything would work. No job, but no. I just thought, well, I'm a finance, so you can temp. So I just temped and got temporary contracts everywhere for a few months and so on and so forth, and did that until I decided to go and do my diploma in coaching. So.
What
Yeah.
what changed? I mean, because obviously from the coaching point of view, you talk about from great overwhelm comes great change. What came to the point of you just saying, right, enough?
Well, that was way back at the end of my marriage. That was enough. Well, it was the accident. It was the accident that showed me. It was like, do you know what it was like? I was lying. It was like the universe was going, by the way, would you do something with your life? because you were nearly dead there. And what have you left behind? 3 children, who now have no mother. What have you left behind? Nothing. What have you ever done? Nothing. Okay, yes, you've done bits and, but really you hadn't actually changed anything. You hadn't made people better. You hadn't, because I was thinking, then afterwards, like, I have all this experience of life. I have experience of hardship sometimes. And yet, how's that going to better anybody? How's that going to help anybody? And then I was seeing my friends, and my friends were in the same position that I'd been in maybe. And I was telling them, look, you can do it if you think about things like this or whatever, try and see it like that. You do have the strength. It's not that you don't have the strength, it's just you don't realize that you have the strength. Things like that. So then that's when I thought, look, if I formalize this slightly and just, because I'd been teaching, and I did lots of voluntary teaching as well with immigrants and things like that. And you heard their stories, I mean, horrendous stories coming out of Syria and so on. And those people had such a will to survive, such a purpose to survive and to send children out and everything else. It was amazing. And we're sitting thinking, God, we've got problems. No, sorry, we don't. So there was this kind of, it was all like came together around about that time that sort of made me think, there's a lot that you could give back that you have not even thought of yet. You don't even know what it is that you can do or that you can give back because you haven't explored it yet. So that's sort of like a mantra for me. I tend to just challenge myself to do something different all the time. And sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. And sometimes I keep it on and sometimes I let it go. But I do sort of challenge myself to do different things and to see how my experience can help somebody else in different things. So like I did last year, I applied to Queen's to do a course, to give a course. And I just thought I just did my master's here. Who on earth is going to employ me to do a course? And I got it. I mean, there was like 5 months and there were numbers of things you had to do and fill in and so on. But I did it. And then I started giving the course last October. It was cancelled there in April and October, but it's starting again in January. And that was called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And after the first lecture, it was 2 hours each one, these 2 girls came up to me and said, we're going to hand our notice in. I said, look, don't get ahead of yourselves, please. And she said, no, but we can't. No, we will, because we've been thinking about it. But what you've been saying there has been, and I've got, oh my goodness, you can't. Just because I said what happened to me doesn't mean you can just go. And I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. And both of them did. And one of them has got a fantastic job with a different company. And the other one started her own company and is doing really, really well. And then there were other people during the course who changed different aspects of their lives, or changed their relationships with their relatives, so I could really see the effect of this. I thought, this is brilliant, And then somebody asked me to write a book, well, co-author a book on things. So that's it there. That was me, one chapter. But at the same time, it was like, hey, that's a different thing to do. Actually write something in a book. So now I'm a registered author or whatever with Amazon. Isn't that brilliant? Then somebody said, well, what about talks? And I thought, yeah, I'd actually like to go into companies and, help that way, because having worked in business my whole life, I know what the staff sometimes have to put up with in the way of stress and so on and so forth. And so I did that for a while. In fact, it was going very well until COVID. And then COVID sort of put a kibosh on that. But I hope that will pick up again. So standing up in front of people at Queen's to give a lecture for the first time, it was like, why, who am I? You know, what is this? Are you stupid? You can't do this, right? This was like the last 4 words that I said to myself, and I thought, no. And I got up, and 2 minutes later, I just thought, I absolutely love this. I love this, you know. And it was like this whole new thing that I could do that I didn't know I could do 5 minutes ago. But I didn't know that I could do it, but I still applied to do it. I still wrote the course. I still, you know, and each time I was writing and each lecture I wrote, I thought, look, this is really stupid because you won't be able to do this. But even though I didn't know that I could do it, I still challenged myself to do all the prep for it. And it wasn't until I actually got up in front of the class and started lecturing that I realized I could do it, and I actually liked it. And the same with the talks. You know, up until like 5 minutes before, I'm okay. Then 5 minutes before, I think, I can't do this. Who's going to listen to me? This is going to go down like a lead balloon. And then everybody likes it. And you think, hey, I can do this. I like this, you know? And then it comes across, of course, whenever you're enjoying doing something, it comes across. So the message comes across. So I think if you know, we have long lives, really, you know, there's so much that you could do that you're not challenging yourself to do. There's so many, everybody has so many things that they could be doing for themselves or doing for other people, or just aspects of who they are that they could bring out. You know, some people write books, some people volunteer, some people do all sorts of things. And the more people that do that, the better the world is. But we've all got it. You know, there's not one person, I believe, who doesn't have some sort of talent that's hidden or some sort of thing that they could do to give other people. I think everybody has something, and they just haven't discovered it yet. It could be just playing the piano. It could be just, you know, giving your music to people. It could be just helping somebody in the street. It could be, you know, cleaning things up. It could be anything. But we've all got it, but we don't challenge ourselves to use it because maybe we don't know it's there. So.
Well, is it a case of not knowing it's there, or is it some other reason that it doesn't come out?
Well, I didn't know I could do any of this till I started doing it. I knew I was intelligent because I had degrees. I knew I could do a good job at work, but anything else was just not there. I'm not a creative person. You know, I didn't think I was a creative person. But it's also, yes, it's the way you're brought up. And I don't mean how bad or good your parents are. I just mean we're all like sponges from the ages of 0 to 7, as I tell people. And we just absorb the culture of our families, the culture of the society we're in. If there's things on the media nowadays, of course, the children just absorb that. So all those mores and norms and everything else we absorb, and we think it's reality. And we live our whole lives thinking this is reality. All these things that we put into our heads, or they put into our heads, sorry, we think that's life, that's true, okay? And it's not, it's somebody else's opinion. So then whenever you get to your, you know, 20s or something, and you believe A, B, C, D, and E, and you keep on as if you're not good at this, or you weren't really cut out for that, or, well, this doesn't matter if you did that. You know, whatever you're, especially with money, you know, you have to work really long hours to get money, or, you know, money is the root of all evil, whatever. Whatever you were taught at the dinner table, basically, if you even have a dinner table now, you know, that's what you believe is real. And the meanings that you put on things, you know, people will look at different people on TV and you'll hear mum and dad saying, oh, well, look at him, he's asked such and such, right? Or your favorite aunt will tell you not to go near this type of person because there are such, whatever. This is what young children believe to be fact. They don't question it because they can't, their brain hasn't developed that far yet. So then you go through a bit of a rebellious period in your teenage years where you do actually question everything that was taught to you. But if you don't find another way of thinking, it comes back again. It's just a little bit of a rebellion, right? But then if you become more aware of yourself and you become more interested maybe in personal development, then you can start to become aware of actually everything that isn't happening to me at this moment in time is a thought. It's just a thought. It's just a memory, or it's a worry about tomorrow, but it's a story that I'm making up. It's what I've been told. I've been told 27 million times whenever I was young, you know, that I wasn't any good at sport because my elder brother was brilliant at sport, right? So I grew up my whole life thinking, I'm good at sport. I can't do any sport. I hate sport. I don't like gym. I don't play hockey, blah, blah, blah. It turns out in my 20s, I realized I was actually very good at swimming. So I loved swimming. But you know what I mean? Like you just think to yourself, you believe what you're told when you're young and you don't question it.
So yeah, so I mean, when you talk about, you know, believe what we've been told, I mean, does that programming, does that happen all the way through our lives, or what?
No, the programming mostly happens before the age of 7, because up until the age of 7 or 8, our brains aren't developed enough to have an analytic part. So when we're older, people tell us things and we can decide for ourselves, is that right or wrong? But when you're a child, you can't. So you just accept it as being true. So we have a version of reality in our heads for the rest of our lives, which is this version, which is got these things in it. So we call them, if they're not helpful to us, we call them limiting beliefs, self-limiting beliefs. If they are helpful to us, that's great. So maybe you grew up in a family where you had lots of money and money was no problem at all. And you just go through life thinking that money is no problem at all because you're always going to have it. Now, those people are the people who are going to be millionaires and who are going to make money all the time because they've got no self-limiting belief about money whatsoever. They're very clear about it. It's there, it's abundant, we can have it, no problem. For the rest of us, especially people brought up in Northern Ireland, it's like, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, you know. You have to work hard for your money. There's not enough money to go around, you know, money's bad, blah, 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 blah. And unfortunately, that's a mindset that is very, very common and that you need to change if you want to actually be able to make money. But there's also millions and millions of other things, you know, like, you know, your sister will make a great wee wife, but God help the man that gets you, or, you know, your brother's so good at science, but you couldn't add 3 and 4 together. And, you know, those are the things that you actually believe to be true. Now, you may well, when you get older, think, of course, I don't believe that, but actually you do. And what happens with your brain is your brain has a negativity bias. So your brain evolved to keep you safe, right? And it wants you to stay in the one place and not move, basically, because then it won't have to worry about all the risks. But unfortunately, if you have then some sort of negative thinking coming your way about something or other, that you're no good at maths, say you're no good at maths, the brain loves that. Yes, absolutely, you're no good at maths. Absolutely, you're not any good at maths. We know you're no good at maths, so don't go down that route. Don't get that job. Don't do this. Don't add this up. Leave that to somebody else, whatever, right? You're no good with money at all. So what happens is the brain doesn't just see those things to think about. It actually blocks you from seeing anything to the contrary. Right? So you could have which I did have, a woman who was very attractive in my office looking in the mirror. I asked her to look in the mirror and tell me what she saw. And all she saw were her flaws. Oh, I've got a spot here. My hair's not right. You know, this woman was extremely attractive, okay? Not only did she believe she wasn't, but her brain wouldn't let her see the facts in front of her eyes. She could look at somebody else and think they were attractive, but she couldn't look at her and see she was attractive. See what I mean? So you're like, it's like a double whammy. So you really have to do a lot of work, first of all, on what the story is that you're telling yourself about this. So, and then you have to find out why you're telling it and who said it in the first place, and can we change it? And this is a lot of the work that I do. So it can be changed, no problem, but you need to be able to think about things in a different way. So you need to understand, there's only 2 things you need to understand. You need to understand where your experience is coming from, your life experience, and you need to understand where your emotions are coming from. Where your experience is coming from is your perception of reality at that moment in time, okay? And that depends on all the programming you've had, all the experiences to date, the actual physical input from your senses and so on. And it's seen through like goggles of maybe anger, goggles of stress, goggles of I'm not good enough, whatever. So what you perceive to be reality is just a conglomeration of all that, which is why everybody's walking about in their own realities, because obviously no two experiences are the same. But where your emotions come in, your emotions are caused directly by your perception of reality at that moment in time, okay? So this is why two people could go into the same place, have the same thing is happening, and they have two totally different experiences of it. Because your experience of reality is totally subjective. It's in your head. Reality isn't out there. In your experience, reality is in your body, in your head. So like I always give the example of two people going into a seminar to, have a seminar, and they go into the coffee and have coffee first, and they both open the doors and everybody starts to laugh. And the first person will go in and it's like, oh my goodness, there must be something on my face, my hair is, oh my, maybe it's my skirt up, whatever. And they'll scurry away into the corner being very embarrassed at all these people laughing at them, and they'll go and they'll have a terrible time. The second person opens the door, everybody laughs, and they'll go, oh my goodness, this is a lively crowd. There's going to be some crack here. I'll get a coffee and then see what the joke was. Now, the same thing happened, the same set of circumstances, but the interpretation and the meaning that you put on that totally depends on your life experience, on the meaning that you put on things like that. What do you think of crowds? Why do you think that about crowds? Why are you anxious in that situation? What is it you're afraid of? Are you afraid of failing? Are you just afraid of being laughed at? Are you afraid of being wrong? Why are you afraid of being wrong? Who would that be if it was, why are you not allowed to be wrong? Why do you have to be 100% all the time? All of those things, all of those questions come from how you feel. So whenever you feel anything which is unhelpful to you, like anxiety or fear or anything like that, there's information in that feeling. And that is what's telling you that there's something wrong with your thinking. It's skewed. It's not quite right. And so I would tell all my clients, don't believe a thought you think until you've questioned it. Don't believe a thought you think, because it's usually somebody else's opinion. If you can question those thoughts and there's evidence to support that it's true, or you might find evidence against it, then that thought changes. The feeling you have about that thought changes, because you'll realize where it comes from. Like I have 3 sons, and whenever they were young, they used to always be asking to do things that I thought were, they were dangerous, right? I want to go down there and pitch a tent on the yacht because we lived in the country. You see that field over there, and there's a river at the bottom of it, and I want to go and stay overnight with my 2 friends in my tent, and I'm going, oh my God. There's going to be a bull in the field, or somebody's going to come and take them away, or they'll drown in the middle of the night, right? So I would just say, no, can't do that, And then I realized by the time my second son was old enough to do that, I would then compromise, and then I would think, well, they're at night or something, and then we'll go and get them, and But it was only when I realized the voice I heard first of all was my mother's voice that I realized that I was being her my whole life. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. That's too dangerous. Now, fair enough, it was the troubles, and there were maybe reasons why, but we were never allowed to do anything. And especially me, because I was the eldest. So basically, I was just repeating by habit what had been told to me in a situation like that. And I wasn't thinking about it. And when you're aware that you do that and you stop and think, and you think, hold on a minute, what is actually my opinion? Well, my opinion is it's a bit dangerous, so maybe they could not park right just beside the river, or maybe they could come home at 11 o'clock, or whatever, and therefore can we do this? And that's a compromise. But you know what I mean? My boys used to say, if mummy says no, you just go back in half an hour and then she'll say yes. But what I mean is, I'm sure we've all heard at one stage or another, our first reaction to something being something we've heard before. Your dad told you, or your mum told you, or your auntie Aggie, or your brother or sister, or a teacher or something. It was something that was programmed into you. It was something that, you lived with. And a belief is just a thought that you tell yourself over and over and over again. Whenever you were 12, 13, 14, you were ugly. You know, you got puppy fat and braces and glasses, and people told you were ugly, and maybe your mum wasn't too nice about it and said you need to lose weight and you look awful with that hair and blah, 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 and we don't like the makeup you wear and so on and so forth. And this went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then whenever you're 25 and you're wanting to go out and you think, oh, I can't go out because I look terrible. I look terrible. My hair's awful. You know, oh my God, this is awful. Okay. But if you looked in the mirror and actually allowed yourself to see what was there, you would see actually you're just normal now. You don't have braces anymore. You're not, you know, puppy fat anymore, whatever. But you still believe, your brain still believes that's what you're like. So it's like that for all of our beliefs, all of our thoughts about ourselves. So whenever you get back to basics, to actually looking at what is happening right here and now in the moment, what are you like right here and now in the moment? Where is the evidence for anything like this? Why do you think you're not lovable? Well, who loves you? Oh, well, my children love me, my mummy loves me, whatever. Well, then you are lovable. Okay, but I'm not lovable to men. Okay, have you never had a boyfriend? Yes. Okay, so you were lovable to them. Do you know what I mean? It's like you beat it down until suddenly at the end of the day they're sitting thinking, why am I telling myself that story? Because it's not true anymore. It might have been true when I was 13 and a half, but it's not true now.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? That the story and the baggage we carry, and you know, just
and then you have to let it go, and then you're yeah, and then you're in the position where and lots. I did a challenge there. I gave a challenge on Facebook not so long ago there for women. And part of it was, you know, you had to think of somebody who had wronged you or who you've hated for a long time or you're angry with for a long time, and you had to forgive them. And it was like, oh my goodness, World War III. How dare you tell me to, how dare you ask me to do that? How can I possibly do that? And I said, it isn't for them. It's for you. They won't know. You're not forgiving them. Actually, if you did, you're not saying it doesn't matter. But for you, you have to give it up. You have to let it go and just leave it back, you know, take the thing off your shoulders and just leave it down. You've been carrying it for years. And then I had 2 or 3 people come back and saying they actually felt that. They actually felt that this weight had come off their shoulders. And in one case, the person was dead. And I'm not suggesting you go and say, I forgive you, although that might be a good idea. I'm just saying you just look at the person in your mind and you bring them out and say, I forgive you. It's all right. But this person that this woman had a problem with was dead. And I suggested that she actually write it in a letter. You know, I'm not condoning that you did X, Y, and Z to me when I was young. But here's the thing, I forgive you. And that helped her, you know, and then she burned it. That helped her. And you may have to forgive a number of times. It's maybe not just once. It's maybe the next time you think of it again. But you'll feel all this resentment. And then you feel lighter because resentment is killing you. It's not killing them. I mean, I always say resentment's like taking poison and expecting somebody else to die. You're the one with the stress response in your body for years and years, you know, nothing happening to them. They're quite happy having been horrible to you or whatever, you know. So why carry it around with you? So the more you're in the present moment, you can see that that makes sense because it's gone. I mean, it's gone. Just let it go. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, in any situation, you can change the situation, you can accept the situation, or you can remove yourself from the situation. So even if you're at work, if it's really horrible, well, I show you how to accept the situation. If you can't change it, if you can't move office, or if you can't get rid of the people, you know, if you can accept this is the way it is until such time as I get another job, you'll feel happier once you do that. If you can't do any of that and it's really making you sick, leave because it's making you sick. Why would you put up with it? But you can usually change it to some extent, and you can then usually accept it to some extent. Part of the thing I always say to people is you have to allow everybody to be themselves. You have to allow people to be who they are. And this is where we come off all the time. We go, he shouldn't have done that to me. She shouldn't have said that. She shouldn't have gone off with my best friend and had coffee and not invited me. That's not the way to behave, blah, blah. No, in your world, In your ideal world, that's not the way to behave, but she's not in your world. You know, that's okay in her world. So you have to say to yourself, well, that's who she is. And I wouldn't like her telling me what to do, so I can't tell her what to do. You know, even in a close relationship, you know, you can object to somebody's behavior, your spouse's inappropriate behavior maybe, or you can object, you can say, look, that's not acceptable to me. I'm not telling you don't do it. I'm telling you it's not acceptable to me, and I'm only going to put up with it for a certain amount of time before there are consequences. Like, I'm telling you how I feel about it, and I'm telling you, you know, what I'm saying is, you're not saying you're not allowed to do that anymore. You shouldn't have done that, blah, 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 blah. And that's what starts arguments and rows. But if you can, and I'm being ideal, of course, but you can do it. I can do it. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. You can actually look at somebody and say, well, I see you. I see who you are. 90% of the time, you're a really nice person. 10% of the time, you're horrible. But that's who you are. I allow you to do that. And that's, you know, okay. I understand that, you know, you're doing this and I don't think it's right, but that's my opinion. That's your opinion. You know what I mean? And then there's fewer arguments about things, or you can move on.
I like that. I mean, in terms of, you know, accepting it, removing it, changing it, you know, that's, if you can categorize it in those three, it sort of allows you to process it. And
absolutely. I mean, it's like, you know, there's times, say, for example, in a long relationship like a marriage, where you're going to maybe have months and months and months of you're the only one who's giving. And then there's maybe months and months where the other person is giving. So you can't just move on because it's not ideal at that 3 months. Maybe in 5 years or 3 years you could. But what I mean is, of course, there's got to be give and take, give and take, give and take. But if you're always giving and the person's always taking, well, that's not a proper relationship. There's no boundaries there for you. You know, there's no, what are you getting out of that? You know, it's got to be joyful for you as well. So then you could start to look at behavior and things like that and say, well, you know, that behavior is just not acceptable to me anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't put up with it. Therefore, so it's not, I'm not asking you to change. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm saying I can't deal with it anymore. Therefore, I have to move on. And you'd be surprised how much better you feel when you take responsibility for all of your feelings, because you are responsible for all of your feelings. You're responsible for everything that you do because of those feelings. And once you take responsibility and realize where it's coming from, it actually makes you feel 100% better about anything. You know, like I have a tenant at the moment who won't move out. He's meant to move out tomorrow. He's been given 6 months notice. He meant to be getting 4 weeks notice, but he's been given 6 months because of COVID. He will not move out. He says, oh, I'm looking for somewhere. I must go. Yes, I'll have to do that. Yes, Now that means I can't sell my house. If you know what I mean, I can't go in and do it up the way I want it and so on and so forth. So last week I was feeling really, really frustrated because this man has been going on. He's just total frustration from the day and hour he moved in. Okay. And I sort of keep washing it off. But now last week I just thought, I've had it. A lorry ran into my car last week as well. I wasn't hurt, but you know, the car's away. So there are all these different frustrating things last week, Pete. And this man was the last of them and the worst. And yet here I am today thinking, well, he'll move out or he won't. Well, he's not moving out. So, well, I suppose I should send him a solicitor's letter or something tomorrow. So now I'll go and see a solicitor tomorrow and I'll say, well, can you write a wee letter to not to proceed, but to say, look, I will proceed if you don't, kind of thing. And I feel so much better because I just think, well, now, you know, I'm just going to do something about it. That's all I can do. And then he'll stay for another 3 weeks and then he'll probably move out and that'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why are you getting upset about it? Might not happen like that. You know, because it could be any possibility, any number of different things can happen. Somebody could offer him a house next week and he could go immediately. You know, or maybe there's going to be a lockdown and I won't get it sold, so I'll be glad of his rent. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can only really deal with what's happening at the moment, really. But you have to believe that you can actually deal with anything that happens. So you might not know what's going to happen, but you can absolutely know that no matter what happens, that you're able to deal with it. And that's self-confidence. That gives you confidence.
There is so many permutations out there that things could happen,
The
might
possibility
happen.
exists. Any possibility exists.
It's completely endless, right? I mean, it's just,
I mean, everybody thought, you know, oh, life was so certain, and then we have coronavirus. Life wasn't certain at all. You know, how can you say life was certain? But we live under the delusion that life is certain because it's better for our mental health, and we don't have to then, you know, because we live in the future so much. We're always worrying about things. So if we can worry about less, then we feel better. But the thing is, life is always uncertain. But we are perfectly capable of dealing with that. But we don't believe we are. You know, we think it's awful. We think this is terrible. How can this be? My routine has been disrupted. Well, look at all the creativity that's happened now at home from all the people who were at home. Look at all the brilliant things that have happened, the new companies that have started, the new way of living. You know, you've had more time with your family, all sorts of things that have happened that are really positively creative about the lockdown. But if you want to think of the lockdown as being terrible, then it's terrible for you. Do you know what I mean? It's just whatever story you're telling yourself about something. And that becomes your reality. That's why you can create your own reality, your own life.
What brings out the best in you, Doreen?
Probably a challenge. I think that's when I'm most like alive, if you know what I mean. For example, I'm trying to write a course here, and you know what? I'm not writing it because I don't have a deadline. If somebody was to say to me, you have to have that done by this time next Thursday, I'd say, right, that's terrible, but I would get on and do it. And, you know, I would sweat blood till I've done it. And I would find that exciting, if you know what I mean. I find I tend to work better when I'm working to a deadline or under pressure, like a challenge that I have to have finished by a certain time, or that it's something different that I've never done before, and I'm challenging myself and I'm not sure if I pull it off. That's whenever, and then that's when you grow. And then you think, oh, I'll do that again. And you think, well, it's not really exciting anymore because I've done it. You know what I mean? It's always the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I think a challenge, yeah.
Would you describe yourself as pain-driven or pleasure-driven?
Oh, pleasure-driven. Pleasure-driven, yes, because the satisfaction that I get when I've accomplished something that I didn't think I could do is just amazing. I love it. And it's like that with clients. When somebody, like you say, somebody comes in and just says, I'm lost, what do you do? And you think, oh my God. At the beginning, I was thinking, oh my God. And now I'm going, yes, we can do this, you know? So it's the accomplishment at the end of it. That's what drives me.
What are you capable of then?
Capable of anything. I won't believe my daddy. My father always told me, you can do whatever you want to do, but you have to want it. You have to really want it. And I think we're all like that. But I think I'm, and a lot of the things I'm thinking of doing, you know, they scare me to death. And I might not try them yet, but I'm going to try them, you know. And I think I will do them, and then that'll be wonderful.
What do you want then?
I do a lot of public speaking. I wanted to write a proper book just by me, and I wanted to go and live in Italy, and buy a house in Italy and live there, and, you know, start something there. So I don't know, with all this stuff and COVID and everything else and the house and all, but I think it'll come together in some shape or form that'll be acceptable, if you know what I mean. Not maybe the shape or form that I'm thinking of, because of course the universe moves in a different way. But
what's
things like that, yes, challenges.
And what's a guilty pleasure for you then?
Oh, chocolate.
You'd be amazed how common that answer is. Tell me, what's your poison with chocolate? What's your
God, Lindt, Lindor, bars. Oh my goodness! And the boys always buy me them for my birthdays and Christmases, and yeah, terrible.
Milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate.
Oh, it has to be milk. Don't like dark, or even white.
Plain nuts, fruit.
No, those nice sort of squidgy things like Lindor, they're like it's hard on the outside and then it's melted sort of chocolate in the middle. Don't get me talking about it. I haven't eaten any for ages.
I love it. The guilty pleasure, just the you can see the smile and everything else.
No, it's just trying to lose weight.
So tell me this, what's your fire in the belly in 1 or 2 words?
Well, my fire in the belly, 1 or 2 words is to live your life and to get people to realize the need to live their life, the need to actually take charge of their life. They need to, not they need to, but they should, because it's wonderful. It's wonderful when you do that, and it's to me, if I can help people realize that and change their lives for the better, that's a good day's work. That's my thing. That's what makes my heart sing.
And so tell me this, where can people reach out to you, follow you, track you down, stalk you?
Well, I'm everywhere, I'm afraid. My website is there. I'm on Facebook. I've also got a business page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, very much so this recent weather, because I've been taking some training on LinkedIn. Basically anywhere. I mean, do you want me to give you the like ... No, that's okay. Yes, absolutely. Also on Google, of course, if you want to look up life coach or Belfast life coach, I'm #1 on Google. And I don't know anywhere else. Yeah, just basically I'm all over Facebook and I'm all over LinkedIn now and Instagram sometimes, but getting more on Instagram. So yeah, absolutely. I'm pleased, and I give, I've got Calendly, so you just go in and book a 20-minute sort of session or call or whatever. It usually lasts more than 20 minutes. It's just to say hello. If you want to come and have a virtual coffee with me, please do. Just get in touch. I'll send you the link for Calendly and you can book in. We'll have a coffee, have a chat. I started this when people were, maybe a wee bit wobbly at the beginning of the COVID lockdown and so on, and then people just came and chatted and so on. But yeah, absolutely. And if you want to come for coaching or whatever, I do a free session to start with and so on. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Is there a final message you'd like to leave with people?
I suppose one of my favorite quotes. So this philosopher, he was dying, said to his wife on his deathbed, "Don't forget, every morning when you lift your head from the pillow, you have everything you need." And I firmly believe that we all have everything we need inside us already. We don't have to go and get it, it's there. You just have to realize that. So that's my quote.
Love it. Doreen, thank you for sharing so much. And listen, I know we will hear more from you, and thank you for that, and best of luck.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for having me on here. And yeah, cheers. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.